I did that at 3 different companies. It really was what sometimes you think is people problem is a path problem.
When I look at what's went well, it's always been the things that I had some sort of a background in. I'm doing it out of love. I just want you to live a long, fruitful life. Today, it's my pleasure to interview Michael O'Rourke.
If you're constantly dealing with tiny problems or the same problem over and over again, it means you're not growing.
I see entrepreneurship is a game of skills.
You do both. One hand, it's like fail to plan to fail. And then on the other hand, it's excellence through execution.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Diehard Entrepreneur Stories podcast. I am Devin, Ramos, your host, and today it's my pleasure to interview Michael O'Rourke, a versatile entrepreneur with over a decade of experience across industries like health, wellness, and e-commerce. Starting his career in corporate wellness, Michael transitioned to e-commerce, where he launched a Shopify business that achieved nearly 10 million in sales within the first 4 years. He is a specialist in digital marketing. He's mastered strategies like conversion rate optimization, Google Ads, and email marketing to scale his online businesses effectively. Now, as a consultant, Michael helps others validate and grow their business ideas quickly and efficiently. And today, you'll get to hear some of his stories. Michael, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
I've shot just about 10 episodes at this point on this podcast. And you are actually the first episode to have somebody that I don't know, that I have not personally met prior to this. I want to congratulate you and tell you that I'm grateful to have you on. And man, just doing a little bit of the pre-show and talking to you, I'm so excited to dig into your story and learn a ton, share it with our audience, and let them see all the great things that you've done.
Awesome. I appreciate it.
Let's jump a little bit into your background. I know you have a long history of sales and marketing, and I'd like to start with, where you were at in college, all the things you learned, and what led you to becoming an entrepreneur. What led you to that moment where you're like, this isn't for me. I need to do my own thing.
Well, so in college, I went to Texas A&M. I was in the Corps of Cadets, and the dream was to be a Marine fighter pilot. And so I was at A&M. I think I was a sophomore when I found out that the Marines were not going to give me aviation because I'd had too many surgeries, which is completely understandable. I wouldn't spend $1 million on a refurbished model either. So about that time, I got introduced to a direct sales company, a network marketing company, and whose products, it was a nutrition company. And I was already using their products, loved the products, got great results. And I was like, all right, well, let's try making some money. And was very successful at that. I wasn't necessarily looking at it as a new career path in light of the Marines, but I ended up making over $70,000 my first year doing it on a part-time basis as a full-time student. And that got me really heavily involved in the health and wellness space. I started doing personal training, and it also taught me sales and to a degree marketing. So that was an invaluable experience from that. And from there, I actually got started in corporate wellness, which most people think is Brad Pitt in a red polo, like at the gym or something. But the reality is it's, here's a company with, say 5,000 people or 10,000 people. How do you help them get healthy? It's not in the gym. I can't train that many people. It's more, sometimes you think is a people problem is really a path problem. It's changing the environment. It's giving people good information. And so I spent about 7 years in that industry. In order to be effective in corporate wellness, you actually have to administer the programs through benefits. So through health insurance and things like that. So I actually ended up taking up benefits departments as well. I did that at 3 different companies and learned a lot. Honestly, one of the companies I was at, it's one of my crowning achievements. What we were able to do, after kind of figured out the code, if you will, the secret to helping people get healthier. And it really was what sometimes you think is a people problem is a path problem. How how do we change the path, and then equipping people with the knowledge and information in order to follow that path effectively.
I'm not familiar with corporate wellness. I'm just kind of going off of what you're saying and what I envision it to be. Is this like maybe, a bigger company, maybe Fortune 500 company, and it's like just the execs, or it's like everybody in the company, it's a part of their benefits plan where you're like telling them how to eat, talking to them about like hitting the gym, all that sort of thing? Or
kind of all of the above. So it depends. So the company sizes I was working out were ranging between about 500 employees up to 10,000, 12,000 employees. So the last company was a Fortune 500 company. I don't know if they still are, but a large manufacturing company. All of them were manufacturing companies. So the employee base ranges from, line worker, manufacturing, all the way up to the executives, of course. So you have broad spectrum of people, and corporate wellness as a whole can be a lot of different pieces. I covered everything. So I was a personal trainer. I was a nutrition consultant. But also I was a lab director. I started a screening company division within the company in order to provide the best screening within the company. One of the reasons I did that was, so I started specializing in what's called outcomes-based wellness programs, which is you meet this criteria or you have a premium differential. You're going to have to pay more for your health insurance, which made me very popular, as you can imagine.
Hey, I'm doing it out of love. I just want you to live a long, fruitful life.
Exactly. So without getting into the weeds on it, I specialized in outcomes-based wellness programs, but I'll give you the high level stuff, which is one thing is if I'm going to do a premium differential based off of your health outcomes, one, I want the measurements to be good. So nobody respects BMI. Everybody's like, oh, I got a bunch of muscle. Nobody respects fasting blood sugar. They're like, oh, I had something to eat this morning. Nobody respects blood pressure. You're like, you're making me nervous and things like that. So we did not really, we measured those things, but we went above and beyond. So instead of, for instance, instead of doing blood sugar, we did A1C, which is like looking at your average blood sugar over the past 90 days. Looking at just your blood sugar, that's like looking at your fasting blood sugar. That's like looking at your bank account the day after payday. You hope it's good, but just because it's good doesn't mean you're broke. You're not broke. A1C is like, it doesn't matter what you just ate. This is the average for the past 90 days. I know you've been eating like crap every day. So not only using those measurements, but also educating people on them so that they respect them. We've all taken tests where we don't respect the methodology. And I didn't want that to happen, especially when I'm charging a premium differential of, say, $1,000 a year per person. So employee plus spouse. So $2,000 a year. I want them to understand that these are real measurements and that they have control over them, that they can influence them. They're not arbitrary. So spent a lot of time educating people about that, spent a lot of time researching the equipment and things like that. And then after doing all that, then helping people improve their numbers. What's the actual advice that gets people results? What's the 80-20? These people are not professional athletes. They're manufacturing employees in a lot of cases. How do we help them get healthy in as little time as possible? And just to give you a high level number, over the course of 1 year of implementing that program, we were able to reduce our diabetic and pre-diabetic population from 60%, which is about the national average now, down to 21% in 1 year, which is incredible. And honestly, I did less work that year than I had the previous 4 years. And the reason is because I changed the path.
Mm-hmm.
Change the path.
Wow,
and
that's good.
Results. So anyways, probably more than you want on corporate wellness, but yeah.
And that's super interesting. I love that. And I love this idea of changing the path, changing the environment to shape, the outcome, right? Mm-hmm. Man, that's so good. So this sounds like you're really heavily invested in what you're doing. You made a lot of impact. What sort of changed during that time to drive you towards well, one, like becoming an entrepreneur, but two, like getting into digital marketing, getting into e-commerce and that whole world?
I've always enjoyed sales and marketing, which is why the nutrition company was kind of a great fit early on. Two things that really drove me over into digital marketing and e-commerce. One was I was always entrepreneurial. Like I was starting companies within the companies, like starting the
I heard that. Yeah.
Yeah, starting the screening company. So like while I was at that company, there were other companies trying to recruit me to go and run their screening company. Or help them build theirs and whatnot. But I wasn't necessarily interested in doing that. I was more focused on doing my own thing. But so that was one aspect is I was always very entrepreneurial. I never expected any company to pay me what I think I'm worth, as a job. I'm like, if I was always going to do that myself. The other thing that was a big push was I was at a Fortune 500 company and it was publicly traded. And frankly, it just didn't align with my values. It was a bit of the wellness program, for instance, was a dog and pony show. They weren't actually trying to facilitate outcomes. So
they just wanted it to look really good for investors.
Right. Yeah. It was really entertaining. I have some funny stories from that time, but I remember when they were interviewing me, they're like, so what are you going to do if you're not able to implement the things that you think you should? And I was like, I'll leave. And I think they didn't believe me, but I left. So I basically within about a month or two of starting that job, I started teaching myself digital marketing, Amazon specific.
Sounds like you were at this point where you're wanting to make impact, wanting to grow. You sort of already had that autonomy, and it sounds like in the other companies that you'd worked at, and you're not really getting that here, and so you're just like, oh well, I don't really need to work here, so I'm gonna go off and do my own thing.
At that time, I think I had about 3 or 4 kids, so it was a little nerve wracking. But I think the term is cognitive dissonance. Like I can't do something I don't believe in, and kind of the last, the straw that broke the camel's back was, I was talking to my, my boss, and he's like, hey, I want to get participation numbers up in this program. And I'm like, this program that we've been doing 3 years, it has negative outcomes. It's having the opposite effect. It's making people less healthy. Like look at this cohort data, et cetera. And I went through all that with him. And then he's like, okay, I see what you're talking about, but how can we get participation numbers up? So verbatim, no exaggeration. I was like, you are compensated. You are bonus off of participation, aren't you? And so that's
I was going to say, this doesn't look good to the board.
Yeah.
They want to see participation numbers.
So I was like, I'm done.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
But, digital marketing, this was probably back in, 2014, 2015. Digital marketing's had been around, Google AdWords and stuff. Facebook was kind of in its prime. And I came across something, called Amazon Retail Arbitrage, which is basically you buy stuff at retail, maybe at Ross or Marshall's or discount bins, and then you throw it on Amazon and sell it for a little bit more.
Dude, you know what? I do remember when people were doing that, and it was more so like an ease of access play, right? Like, hey, it's just easier. Like, yeah, I could drive over to whatever TJ Maxx and actually shop for this item, or I can just order it on Amazon Prime and get it shipped to me. So this was before, well, maybe I might be wrong here, so correct me if I am, but was this before like drop shipping and like is it FBA?
So FBA stands for Fulfillment by Amazon. So how retail arbitrage would work is essentially you buy the products from wherever, like you could get it from a wholesaler, but a lot of times people were buying them from discount retail stores, or in some cases just Target or Walmart. Especially Christmas time, you got a hot toy that's selling out. Well, Walmart's not going to charge a higher price for it, but if you put it on Amazon and retail arbitrage, you can charge a higher price for it.
I get it. So this was a form of FBA,
correct?
And you're getting your product from actual retail stores versus like wholesale.
Exactly. Exactly. So that's what I started at. And it was never in my intent to keep doing that. And honestly, I didn't even care if I made money at it. I just wanted to learn the platform. I wanted to learn the platform without having to risk money on inventory. So I'm buying these onesie twosies things, running around the house, selling random things. Anything with a barcode, you can scan it, send it into Amazon, and then they will distribute it. I don't remember the metrics for that, because again, I wasn't focused on making money, but I did that for about 3 months just to learn the back end, learn the processes. And then I started what's called private labeling, which other people would say starting a brand, whatever. There's a lot of Me Too businesses. So basically, this was back when Yeti tumblers, if you're familiar with those, the stainless steel vacuum insulated tumblers were really hot. Yep, that's the one. So
yeah,
when I came across this trend, Yeti tumblers were selling for like $50, $60 for a normal size because there was such a shortage. They were the hot item. And I was looking at that and I was like, okay, one, there's no lids that seal, which is ridiculous. All the lids that come with it are open, and nobody's selling those anywhere either. And I was like, if people are willing to spend $50, $60 for a tumbler, they want to accessorize it. So, basically I did some research. I looked on Amazon. Some people were selling them and they were making a lot of money, and I still didn't want to risk a lot of money on an inventory order. If you're ordering from China, you've got minimum order quantities, you got to pay for shipping, etc. So I actually found a company that was willing to do wholesale deals, who was actually based here in Texas, and they had like a 60-day return policy. So I went and I bought, I think, 2,000 lids from them that sealed, and I got them. I sent them immediately into Amazon, and then I did what I'd been learning, which is listing optimization, how to get reviews, forced ranking, optimizing the SEO, etc. And within about 3 or 4 months, was selling about $180,000 a month of $10 plastic lids. So it was crazy. The next thing we did was, did a handle, did the Yeti tumbler handle. Those were a thing. I think they still are, but, and just kept iterating on that. And that at one point, my kids were all on the floor, with poly bags and putting a lid with straws. I have pictures of it, free child labor. But anyway, I could add a 15-cent straw and I could charge an extra $5 for it. So that was a no-brainer for me.
Wow. I love that so much. So when you're figuring all of this out and you start to go in on these lids and it's growing, did you just keep doubling down on the lids, or were there any other products, or it was just that one product?
It was the same vertical. So I had a handle made. So I had a handle designed, had the mold made in China, and then started sending those over, and those were selling very well as well. The lids were by far the number one thing. I think peak, we were probably selling like $60,000 a month of handles, which is still great.
Wow.
But, so kept doing that. And, that was a lot of fun. Eventually that trend died down, of course, but made a good amount of money and learned the platform significantly. And, I feel like it's a disservice when you always talk about the highlights. I will tell you, like, throughout this process, probably once a week, certainly like at least once a month, like I'm in tears, like trying to figure out some horrific problem that's come up. Like, there's a cash flow issue, for instance, when you're scaling that fast, because I got to pay for 50,000 lids, and then they got to be manufactured, and then they have to be shipped over. And then I'm losing ranking on Amazon because I'm out of stock, or Amazon shuts you down for some random thing, because this was back in the Wild West days of Amazon. It was very different. So it was constant problems from a variety of sources, where, it wasn't just smooth sailing and counting the money. It was, all right, what's the next thing? So a hacker hopped on our listing. How do I get them off? Somebody's selling under our listing, under our brand name. How do I get rid of them? So again,
nonstop.
Yeah. it kind of culminated at a point where I was doing some seller fulfilled orders because it was really turning over fast, so I couldn't get it into Amazon fast enough. And there was a period of time at Amazon where they had a lot of fraudulent sellers doing seller fulfilled. So they'd hop on in the holiday season, they'd do seller fulfilled, and Amazon would pay, within 2 weeks, but you have 3 weeks to get the product to them. And those people are gone. They're overseas. So it kind of culminated in a situation where I seller fulfilled about $250,000 worth of product. And I haven't gotten the money for it yet, but I have all the expenses for it. I have the shipping, I have the product, etc. And then I wake up, one Christmas or season that's like right after Thanksgiving, and Amazon has frozen my account. They canceled my personal orders. They say you can't sell on Amazon anymore. And you're not going to get the money for at least 60 days, and you may not get it ever. Because they kind of just came down with a hammer. Anybody who is doing significant volume seller fulfilled, they just shut you down.
Stop it. Yeah.
That's what, I think, again, I had probably 4 kids. It's Christmas time. I'm like, I can't float 250,000. I'm just stressed out of my mind. And that's when I was like, okay, no single point of failure. I need to learn, other forms of marketing like Facebook. I need to have my own platform. I need to have more autonomy. And I'd already been learning it, but yeah, that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back on that one.
What I really want to highlight and I appreciate about you is your mindset. I'm sure you agree with this, but I see entrepreneurship is a game of skills. Like that's really all it is. And that's really what life is to me. This is just the way I see life. It's a game of skills. And so you start out with, hey, I'm not even trying to make money. I don't really care. I just need a widget so I can test this thing safely and kind of like figure it out. And you're like figuring it out. You're not like trying to optimize. You're not trying to scale. You're just like trying to figure it out. And then you figure it out. And then you're like, okay, now what can I do? And likewise, when you just said like, I can't float the $250,000, here's a single point of failure. Again, your mind goes to skill. Like, okay, how am I going to hedge risk? More skill. And I think that for me, as I've grown, all the way to the point where I'm at right now, my mindset has never changed. Like when I couldn't make $100 a week, or I was barely making $100 a week, what I always found a lot of contentment in was like, I can get a job anywhere. Like it's just about skill. So as long as I can learn these skills and build on these skills, I can get a job anywhere. And fast forward to where I'm at now, like, I'm like, man, if my company burns down today or something happens, like I truly feel good. Like I have the skills, like I can go out and replicate this and do that. And I think that for a lot of people, starting out, the ones that don't see it that way, it's like, man, every turn, every corner is scary to them. And it's like, well, what if I lose this? What if I can't do this? What if I can't replicate it? It's like, man, if you'll just focus on the skill and getting good at whatever it is you're doing, like nobody can take that from you. And if something changes, just pivot, iterate, build from what you had and do it again. And man, that just resonates so much with me hearing you say those things.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Well, very well said.
Yeah. Okay. So you realize, hey, I need to branch out. I need to build some other things. Where do you go from there?
So at that point, I had already started kind of teaching myself other forms of marketing like Facebook ads and Google, etc. And I'd learned a little bit of conversion rate optimization from Amazon and email marketing to a degree. But really, I kind of just hopped on Upwork and started doing consulting jobs. I started doing marketing for other companies, because one of the things when it comes to sales and marketing, it helps if so it's kind of like algebra. You're solving for X. You don't want to solve for X and Y. You want to just solve for X. So I like starting with something that I know already works. I like starting with something that I know already sells. So that way, if I'm not getting sales, I know it's me and not the product.
That's good, man.
That's why imitation is a great place to start. It's like, I know people need their lawns mowed. I know people like, AirPods, whatever it is. So starting to learn the sales and marketing in the platform or whatever that you're trying to learn, start with a product that is already doing well. And that way you're isolating the variable of your skill in sales and marketing.
And that is so good.
I don't want the frustration of wondering, oh, it's a bad product. Oh, I'm terrible at sales and marketing. I want to know that it's the sales and marketing. I want to know it's me, not the product. Cause otherwise you never figure it out. So that's what I was doing with working on Upwork, doing consulting and stuff, and kind of the whole time doing some more product research, which is something I used from Amazon. I learned a lot of product research from Amazon because you can see, you can get pretty close estimates of what people's sales numbers are on there. So it's kind of neat.
Awesome. So is that just to kind of like, in a nutshell, is that like, you're just like surfing Amazon and you're basically looking for hot items and seeing like how quick they're selling, what price points, what margins, things like that?
Right. So you can, to a degree, see what their inventory numbers are in some cases. You can see what their sales ranking is. And so sales ranking in different categories have different sales velocities. You can see, their sales history. Now, it's not 100% accurate, but you can be like, okay, these people are doing $1 million to $2 million, or these people were doing 500,000 last year and they're doing 5 million this year. Like, this is growing. And so that's really useful. And then for me, because I was like, I don't want to be just on Amazon, or I don't want to be on Amazon at all. For me, it was, okay, this is selling really well on Amazon. Is anybody selling it well off Amazon? And that was kind of my next product. I found a product that was selling really well on Amazon and nobody was doing a good job off Amazon.
So you saw opportunity in that.
Correct. So Amazon is a search engine. Amazon, I think, is the third largest search engine. I could be wrong, but it's Google's number one, YouTube's number two, and then I believe it's Amazon. Regardless, Amazon is a massive search engine. So the only reason something is selling well on there is because people are searching for it. It's not it as opposed to interruption marketing. So like social, like Facebook and TikTok, are interruption marketing platforms. So because I knew people were looking for it, I was like, okay, I know I can at least sell some of these. I know people are looking for these on Google. And I looked at the people who are showing up on Google. I'm like, I know I can do better than them. I can have a better website made. I can do better ads. I can do better pricing. But again, I didn't want to risk any money. So
I love that. So how'd you do that?
This is kind of as fun, but a little bit more involved than the lids. So I contacted all my future competitors, and said, hey, I'm going to be buying a bunch of these products, and can I get a discount? And one of them gave me, I think, like a 25 or 35% discount. It doesn't matter what it was. They gave me the highest discount. I was like, sweet, got 30% discount. And then I turned around and had a website built. So I got on Fiverr, Upwork, had a website built for like $350. Honestly, so I've had a lot of websites built. This was the best one I've ever gotten for $350. So I got lucky there. But I've tried to find the guy over and over again, but never found him. But anyways, so sad.
I was going to ask you for him. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm gonna, you know what? After this call, I'm gonna get back on there and see if he's back on. I feel like he was like a PhD student, like doing free work or something. He was on top of it. But so $350, have a website built. So I've got a website. I have product sourcing, if you will, from my future competitors. And this is really important because these products have to be personalized. They're laser engraved. So I can't just buy it from a wholesaler. I need somebody to actually laser engrave these things. And so now I start running Facebook ads. And again, the point is not to make money. I've risked $350 on the website at this point. Now I start running ads. And the point of this is just to get my acquisition costs. How much is it going to cost me to get a sale? And so I do that for about 2 or 3 months. And during this time, by the way, like I've got a live chat feature on my e-commerce site. I'm talking to everybody who goes there. I'm sitting there hanging out with my kids. I'm like, hey, anything I can help you with? Any question? Because I want to know. So like, why are they leaving? Why are they staying? Why are they buying? Because I want to update the stuff. I want to iterate quickly because every dollar matters. But honestly, within a week, I'm profitable. I'm getting sales. I don't remember what the first couple weeks or couple months were, but I was profitable. I kept running the ads. I scaled them a little bit. And then, so I'm getting these orders, and then I have a VA that I'm paying, $4 an hour or something, hop on my competitor's website and take the order from my website and put it in my competitor's website. So I'm essentially drop shipping. They just don't.
Yeah, basically. Another form of arbitrage. It just looks slightly different.
Exactly.
That's so cool.
There's always a way to test a business like this. It doesn't matter. Even if you're selling services, you can contact the company that is selling the same services you want to offer and say, hey, can I get paid for leads? Can I get paid for a sale? Can I get a commission? Like, there's no reason for you to have to start the whole business and set up the whole back end before you know whether or not you can sell it. Go sell their stuff. They already have a reputation. And then you don't have to worry about the rest of it. And then when you do build out your back end for that service, you know that you have the ability to generate sales.
I love that, Michael. Let's dig into that really quick. So just to highlight that, right? So when you're talking about mitigating risk, one of the ways you're mitigating risk is through arbitrage, right? Which, just kind of dumb it down, all we're doing with arbitrage is creating a spread, right? So we're buying at $5, we're selling it at $10, right? We're just capitalizing. And the way that we're doing that, though, is in a way that we don't have to take as much risk. So rather than, spending $5,000 on a $5 product, buying it, holding it, and then sending it to somebody else for, marking it up at $10, you're doing it in a way where you're kind of confirming the need for it first, the desire for it, and then it's going to be ordered. And then you're going over and you're actually ordering it and fulfilling. Am I correct in saying it that way?
That's it.
I love that. And so you can see, I know, like, I own a real estate company, and in real estate, there's various forms of arbitrage. One of them that got really popular and is actually slowly getting shut down market to market is Airbnb arbitrage. So similar, whereas a investor, rather than buying a property and owning it outright and having all the risk, they're just basically paying rent to the owner, and then they're going and renting it out on Airbnb, and they're getting, instead of the solid, $1,000 a month, they're getting the $3,500, $4,000 a month, and they're getting to collect all that spread. So, which I think is excellent. Just such a good way to mitigate risk. I love that that's where your head was at, in terms of discovering this skill, like how you're figuring out the Facebook ads and everything.
Right.
So cool.
Yeah, risk mitigation. Like, when you're starting out, you don't want to bet the farm. You want to be able to get as many at bats as you can, because otherwise you may not get to go again. The more risk mitigation you can do, the better. And also, it helps you iterate faster. This system, it's not just risk mitigation. It's like you're actually verifying whether or not you can sell this, whether or not this is a good idea.
Absolutely. Okay. So you're doing that for a while, and I guess it starts to prove itself to work because you scaled this thing, right?
Yes. So about 2 months in, I was like, okay, this is working great. I'd probably profited maybe $3,000, $4,000 at this point. Cause, I'm essentially paying just discounted, a decent sale off retail prices. So I'm definitely not maximizing profit. So, but I have a big email list at this point of people who've abandoned their cart and people who have bought the product. So I write an email, cause I've learned email marketing at this point, and I write an email and say, hey, we're a small family owned business. We're about to do another inventory order. We're going to give you a discount if you pre-order. So I send that to all my people on my list, past customers, abandoned cart people, etc. And then I think I get about $25,000, $30,000 in pre-orders. And then
wow.
So I've already identified an actual supplier. I actually put in the order like as soon as I did, because it's a handmade product. They need to get ahead. So I put like a 5% deposit down or something tiny. Then I did a pre-order, or did the pre-order sale, collected about $25,000. And so now I've got the inventory coming. I still need a laser. And I know nothing about laser engraving, by the way, either. So it's like, this is going to be fun. So I've been doing research on the lasers and stuff. the lasers that I ended up with at the end of this, were $40,000-$50,000 a piece. So I don't want to start there. Wow, so okay. I find kind of a consumer grade laser that I'm able to take the bottom out so I can engrave things that are taller. And that also has, big surprise, a 60-day return guarantee. So if this doesn't work, I can return this laser in 60 days. Now, that doesn't hedge all my risk because I still got the inventory and that does not have a 60-day return guarantee, but I do have these pre-orders. So anyways, the laser comes in, able to figure that out. It's a horrible laser, but it gets the job done. I'm like, it takes forever and I have so many orders. So literally I had this laser set up in my garage. It's venting out underneath the garage. And I knew how long each product would take to engrave. And so I go set it up, get it perfectly. And it was a huge process figuring out like how to do all this, getting the formats right, the placement, alignment, etc. Like brushing over a lot of stuff, but just know it was hell.
Yeah.
And
sounds like it.
And then I go in and I start watching a show or something, or I'm reading a book with my kids. My stopwatch goes off. I go back out into the garage, switch the product out, start the next one because I have to keep going. I'm doing the math. I'm like, I have to run this thing like 16 hours a day in order to get through all my orders because it was really more of a function of the laser being bad. So that was kind of the start of that business. And fast forward, within probably about 3 or 4 months, was in about a 3,000 square foot facility, which we doubled in space, got the one next door, ended up with about 7-8 lasers of the commercial ones that, we could do like 50 units at a time. And that business, its first full year, I think did around 1.7 million in sales. And then its second year did around 4 million in sales.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. And just so I have an idea, what was the product cost? What were you selling it for?
So our average order value was about $75. And every product was personalized. Everything was laser engraved. So, if you're shipping out 500 units a day, each one of them is different. Each one of them is personalized. So you've got somebody doing the graphics on each one and then placing on the computer, et cetera. It was a process, but fun.
So you get that thing, you start scaling it, and then what comes next?
The product was a great novelty item. It wasn't one good for building a brand off of. And the plan all along was to use this product to generate a bunch of sales and then turn around and use the equipment to go into like the laser engraving and stuff to go into a different personalization. So I wanted to do a B2B gifting business, essentially, like serving real estate agents, mortgage agents, etc. That was a little bit after COVID. So it was really bad timing. There's a lot of things changing in the internet marketing space with iOS 14.5 and ad costs and then shipping costs as far as importing this stuff. And it really changed the profitability of the business, especially since my lifetime value of customers wasn't where it needed to be because I didn't have enough other products and whatnot. So I've kind of
keep them around.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of put that to the side. I still have the equipment, still want to go back to that, but because the model that I want to do requires so much more product variety, I've kind of shelved that because it's very capital intensive to carry that much inventory. So instead, I'm kind of pre-building my list, if you will, for that to launch at a later date.
That's really cool. And yeah, I totally hear that. As you're saying this, I'm kind of picturing it and I'm like, man, I think you said you have maybe 8 of those machines. Mm-hmm. So you got assets, you got the building space if you're going to do this product, plus you got all the inventory that you got to hold at any given time because you have, some that are fresh, some that are being worked on, some that are ready to be shipped. Like, right. Oh man, yeah, that sounds pretty capital intensive to me. So I totally get that. So you shelve that, and where do you go from there? Was there another e-commerce business, or what did you really start to transition to from there?
So the next skill.
Yeah, I love it.
The next skill is, so e-commerce is great, but as far as like now I started kind of learning about, private equity and enterprise value and buying and selling businesses and whatnot. And obviously being able to generate sales and do marketing is a valuable skill. But most of my expertise at the time was focused on e-commerce. So I really wanted to start learning more about B2B marketing, expand into cold outreach, email marketing, things like that. And I was really interested in the SaaS space as well, as everybody is. Can't be 10 to 15x multiples of revenue. Since then, I've been doing a lot of consulting work, both for e-commerce, but also kind of trying to help out with some SaaS companies. One of the more recent companies was a SaaS company that helps with reviews, and was helping them build out their cold email strategy and also doing some of their Facebook marketing. So I'm doing a lot of consulting right now. I have some projects, or a specific project right now that I'm starting in the service industry, like home services, auto services. I like that market a lot.
I love that. Me too.
I like synergies. So if you remember the B2B gifting space, so if getting everything you can out of everything you've got. So if I end up moving forward with the personalization gifting in the B2B space, so for instance, real estate agents, mortgage brokers, etc., would be top of my list. Well, they're also great for marketing home services. So I like being able to share lists. But also the industry's moving towards subscription models certainly for home services, and also vertical and horizontal integration in those. That's really interesting to me. I'm currently, in phase one of a auto services business. So testing it out, have had my first few customers, and next up, we're getting acquisition costs. So hopefully I can circle back around with you in 12 months and tell you what a blockbuster success it is.
Oh man, I really hope so. What I hear is a lot of thought out planning in what you do. As a fellow entrepreneur, there is this aspect of like, hey, you kind of like figure it out along the way. Like, don't analyze, don't overthink it. Like, just jump in. However, there's some people that take that to the extreme and they have like no plan. Like, I don't understand. Sometimes it's like, in a consulting capacity and coaching capacity, I'll talk to people. I'm like, well, if we don't know where we're going, anywhere we go is right. Like, how do we know if it's a success or not? And it's like, sometimes you can see the light bulb, and I've done it too, where I probably should think about that. So where that planning aspect, where did you come up with that? Like, you don't just think about like, okay, here's what the end is, but you're like, you've got it like phased out. You're like, you just said it right now. You're like, we're working on our customer acquisition. Like, I need to nail that. Where did you get that from? Did that come from your corporate experience, or did you see somebody else do it?
Growing up, my dad was an entrepreneur, in brick and mortar retail. So I definitely learned some market testing from him. I remember this is pre-digital marketing. I remember going into stores with him. He sold toys. He owned a couple toy companies, and I remember he would go into toy stores or Walmart, Toys R Us, whatever, with a prototype product, and then with a box, a packaging that wasn't real, but it's like, hey, let's make this look real. And he'd put it on the appropriate shelf, and then he'd hang out in the aisle and he'd wait for people to come. And then, he'd ask like, why didn't this catch your eye? Or why did this catch your eye? Why aren't you taking this up front to buy, which you can't? So that he would do market research. And that's kind of the first part for me is, how can you test it? Now you can do that much faster, much better, of course. But I'd say he was ahead of his time there.
For sure. So you're watching him as a kid, you're like watching him do this, and it's just like, man, the exposure, I can imagine, is just like, oh yeah, well, this is how dad did it. This is how you do it. Right. Which is brilliant, by the way. Your dad's awesome. Sounds awesome.
He's a great businessman for sure. Yeah, he's awesome. As far as the rest of the planning goes, it's just I've done this a few times. So on the business cycles, you've got some of them, the unknowns aren't unknown anymore. So like I do know the questions to ask. I do know what the variables are, but I also know that the variables are unknowns. I know what I'm trying to solve for. You are in business, you are always solving for something. You're just trying to isolate what that is. You want to know what you're working on right now. So I try and go through that sequentially. Most people, everybody, here's a great example. Everybody knows somebody who's like, oh, I got this idea. I'm going to go patent it. Like, why? You don't know whether or not anybody wants it.
Why spend all that money? Like, you're putting the cart before the horse. No, I totally understand. I mean, simultaneously for me, one of the things that I've seen, and I've done it myself, is like, you scale something out that's like, you haven't even proven. It's like I've scaled things before I've even like really gotten a good look at KPIs and like even started tracking those KPIs. From the position I'm at now, it sounds absolutely insane. But yeah, I mean, live and learn. We do some crazy things sometimes, right?
Yeah, it is a balance. So here's where I feel like people who aren't entrepreneurial struggle, and entrepreneurs do too. We operate in these false binaries. We're like, do we plan or do we not plan? No, that's a false binary. You do both. On one hand, it's like fail to plan to fail. And then on the other hand, it's excellence through execution. Learn by doing. So they're not contradicting. It's both of them. It's knowing when to use each. So I tell my kids, I was like, knowledge is knowing things. Wisdom is knowing when to use that knowledge.
Yeah.
So
that's so good. Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm at. I think about Elon Musk and, SpaceX, for instance. I've read one of his biographies, not an autobiography, but talking about how he's starting that. And like, it's a rocket company. They're going to space. They're trying to go to Mars. Like, and he knows nothing about it, but he had a plan. Now, I don't know how much it looked like his plan, but he had a plan. He knew, he's like, this is costing us X amount of dollars a day not having this operational. So like, no, there's a baseline of planning you need to do. If you're a new entrepreneur, you don't know all those phases of business. So you want to isolate that variable. So you need to, in my opinion, you should start with something that you know already works, and you're just trying to build a better mousetrap. And so you just copy them, and you can be like, okay, here's all the things they have. Let's copy this. And then you can monitor your execution, excellence through execution. And then through doing that, you're going to recognize problems, and then you're going to be able to build a better plan the next time around. So,
man, that is so good. So good to hear. I completely agree. I look back at sort of my journey, and I've had a few different businesses that I've started. And when I look at what's went well, it's always been the things that I had some sort of a background in. Right. And so, when you talk about like controlling the variables and isolating the problem and doing things sequentially, very similarly, anytime I've pursued like a business endeavor, when I've done something where there's a lot of skills to be learned, it's always moved way slower than when I've taken like pre-existing skills and then said, okay, let's just build a business around this, right? So I'll give like my cleaning company as an example. My wife is the master cleaner. We have all the background on it. We know what to do. We're just like, let's take the little bit of business acumen we have and sell this thing. Versus when I went into real estate, where I said, I didn't even know real estate was a thing 4 months ago, and now I'm going to start marketing for it. And it was significantly more difficult to grow. So I hear that so much in what you say. And I think that is a point that like you should rewind this podcast and listen to it again. That's so good.
Awesome. Thank you.
Michael, you've had some pretty cool experience so far. What would you say has been like one of the most pivotal or most like impactful, either, like learning points or like losses or wins that you've had that just kind of like overshadows your journey, like something that you find yourself always going to and being like, man, that right there was huge for us?
There's just so many times when, the two Amazon freezing my account and holding on to $250,000 during holiday season and canceling my kids' Christmas presents. I got the money back, by the way. I had to work pretty hard, lawyers and all that.
Oh, thank
I got
goodness.
the money back after Christmas.
After Christmas was canceled.
Exactly. Other people's weren't. I got the products out, but mine was. So yeah, it's one of the things that sticks out is just your problems never go away; they just get bigger. If you're constantly dealing with tiny problems or the same problem over and over again, it means you're not growing. But there's not necessarily any one thing. It's deciding I'm going to find a way. Like there are so many paths to success. It's just it's not about finding the right one. It's not even about finding the right one for you. It's about deciding you're going to make it work and then make one work. So that's the biggest thing for me, is because I tried to communicate some of the struggles and stuff, but no, I've sat in my garage crying, trying to figure out how to make this laser turn on, literally just to get it to fire, things like that. And there's countless stories like that. So it's just finding a way.
Yeah, I love that. And I hear that so much in your story, thinking about it, just hearing your background. It doesn't seem to me likely that somebody with your background that had your experience, that was making as much impact that you was like, yeah, man, I'm just so passionate about Yeti lids. That's where it's at, man. That's where it's at. It's like, I believe you so much when you say it's like, you can make it work. It's about building the skills. You might not be super passionate about the thing, or it might not be the perfect thing or the ideal thing. That's not even what it's about. It's about getting in there, doing it, figuring it out, being the problem solver, and having this expectation that your problems aren't going away. There's not a certain point that you work towards to have no problems if you want to be an entrepreneur. Their problems are just getting bigger. Oh, by the way, if you see that you're encountering the same problem over and over and over again, something's wrong. I love that. That's what I heard from you.
Yeah.
So I love that.
Sure. Thanks.
Man, that's so good. Cool, Michael. Well, man, on that note, I feel like I'm going to have you on the show again, because there's just so much stuff to dig into. But on that note, I know that you transitioned back over to consulting, and you're working on some of these projects it sounds like on the side while you're doing this consulting. For our audience, where are you at right now? What are some of the things you're working on, and how can they reach out to you to learn more and get involved in what you're doing?
As far as what I'm doing, I'm doing a lot of consulting work, and I love helping entrepreneurs get started or start new product lines. I like interesting verticals or interesting problems. So it doesn't really matter what you're doing. I'm happy to help out in any way I can, or tell you that it's a terrible idea as well. All of the above. But best way to reach out to me is email, honestly. It's M as in Michael O'Rourke, OROURKE at thecmoguy.com.
Cool. Well, y'all heard that. Best way to get in contact with him, we'll put that in the show notes as well. Michael, thank you so much for coming on and sharing some of these stories along your journey. It has been a pleasure. And once again, I've learned a ton. I told you I was in the beginning. I knew I was going to learn a lot.
I appreciate your time. Thanks for having me on, Devin.
Yeah, of course. All right. Until next time.